Do you want your business to grow faster? Are you open to new and out-of-the-box ways to drive revenues and increase value? How do you imagine the most successful entrepreneurs and business leaders double, triple, or expand their businesses tenfold or more? The answer is deals. This is a weekly podcast featuring conversations with business owners, executives, and leaders as we reveal behind-the-scenes details that give you, our listeners, the confidence to pursue your own deal-driven growth. On the show, we discuss a huge variety of deals, everything from large, complex mergers and acquisitions to smaller deals that you can do even without significant capital. My name is Corey Kupfer, and I've been supporting deal-driven growth for businesses for 35 years as a successful entrepreneur, professional negotiator, and attorney. My goal is to help you strategize, plan for, find, and complete deals that will help your company grow faster. Welcome to the Deal Quest podcast. Let's get started. Natasha Miller isn't your average CEO. She sits at the helm of Entire Productions, the go-to experience design, event, and entertainment production company in San Francisco, and has been on the Inc. 5000 list of fastest growing companies in America for 3 years in a row. Natasha's passion and commitment to giving back drive her invaluable contributions and participation in numerous charitable organizations. She is also performing as a jazz vocalist and trained classical violinist. What don't you do? Natasha is the proud graduate of Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses, which is a great program, by the way. I know a number of people went through it, and has studied entrepreneurship at Harvard Business School and MIT, and is a member of the Recording Academy, the Grammys, ASCAP, SF Travel, and Meeting Professionals International, MPI. She resides in San Francisco, California, where she is a member and on the board of EO Entrepreneurs Organization. Many, pretty much all my listeners know I am an EO member, former board member, former New York president, and fan. So we have a little bit in common. Natasha Miller, welcome to the Deal Quest podcast.
Thank you, Corey, and welcome back.
So yes, we were just talking in the pre-show. I just got back the other day from Croatia, and Natasha got back a week ago from Italy. So we were both on different sides of the Adriatic Sea, and blessed to do so. So Natasha, listen, before we get into what you do now with all the event and experience planning and how there are deals in that industry that we're going to talk about, I want to take you back to when you were a little girl growing up, maybe 8, 10, 12 years old. What did you want to be? Because my guess is a event and experience planner might not have been it, but who knows? Maybe it was.
I'm not sure I knew that there was such a thing. Certainly growing up in the middle of the country in Des Moines, Iowa, there weren't very many experiences for me to see that was a thing. But what I wanted to do, and what I only thought I would ever do, would be a performance artist. So a classically trained violinist and a jazz vocalist. And it's what I wanted to do and did do for many, 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 many years. And in a way, I'm still doing it, but just not at the level that I was doing it before.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, listen, that obviously in your bio, you talked about that. And so that passion for music is still there, huh?
Yes. And it serves me well. I'll give you an example, a quick one. I just launched a book, as you know, and one of the things that I did was a performance gala at the SF MoMA, where not only did I just read excerpts from the book, but I addressed the audience, talked to them, talked with them, and then performed. Yeah, so it all works out. It all works in my favor still.
I love it. I got to tell you, my wife comes out of the arts as well, and she's a coach and trainer and also a professional speaker, and she does these performative keynotes where she mixes in music and poetry, and it really gives it. It's fresh for the audience. It gives them something different. So I definitely get it. What was looking back one more time? It could have been when you were a kid or older, whatever comes to mind. Your first deal of any type.
Well, the first deal that I did was, instead of playing my violin with a string quartet for free for the governor's inauguration, we were paid. And let me tell you, that lit me up.
Wow, I get paid for something I love to do, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Love it. All right, so listen, we talked in your bio, generally about what you do, but why don't you give us just 30 seconds or a minute on the core, of what you do in the business and who you serve, who your ideal customers are, and what you do for them.
My core business is Entire Productions. It's an event and entertainment production company based in San Francisco. And we work mostly with the companies that are in our region: Salesforce, Google, Apple, LinkedIn, Adobe. And you can just keep naming them off. And I know I am so lucky to have these all as my everyday clients.
Absolutely.
We put on over the top, amazing, bold experiences for them that we're trying to drive guest engagement and create like irrational evangelism for their brands.
Love it. Love it. I love it. Over the top. Wow. I mean, and I got to tell you, we've been, I think, moving for years to what they, have called the experience economy, right? Everybody values experiences more, or not everybody, but a lot more people value experiences more than material goods. And I think that was before the pandemic. And now, coming out of the pandemic, when people, really missed, that in person, those experiences that, I can only imagine that you must be busy.
Yes, things are picking up big time. We knew even late last year that our clients weren't going to do their typical 5,000 to 6,000 plus person events for a while, and that the bread and butter of our business wouldn't come back until third and fourth quarter, and that's happening right now.
Yeah, totally get it. I mean, I've just seen it anecdotally, with other organizations I'm involved in, and just, even within the Entrepreneurs Organization, right, where GLC. So much of our, was virtual, last couple of years, like everybody else within my National Speakers Association community. And there's this draw to being connected again. Yes, in a way that's safe and appropriate and everything, all the testing and everything else that people are doing, but that human connection people are really desiring. So great. So listen, I mean, so the core business is, right, you get a customer, you put on an amazing event for you, for them, they pay you for it. That's much more of what we would look at as, as a sale or a client, a relationship, that kind of stuff, which we always say that, and that's what we call organic growth. That's not what the podcast is about. We always say, though, if you're in business, unless you are one of the tiny percentage of companies that's formed to be an acquisition company only, you need to do that well. You need to be able to satisfy your clients. You need to be able to market to them. But in addition to doing that, and obviously doing that well, as you serve all these amazing clients, household names that we've all heard, but you also do deals, right? So talk to us a little bit about what kind of deals you do, and what category they fall into.
So when our profitable multi-million-dollar business went to zero in March of 2020, enter panic button.
Yes.
We had to get scrappy and creative on how we built the company back and saved it. So I had to lay off half of my team, and the half that I chose to lay off were the event production, planning, design side. I kept the entertainment production side, and really we were able to do over 200 virtual events in 2020. Did as many in 2021. But what started happening was we were getting inquiries for full production. And that means instead of just bringing in a band or a headliner or a bunch of musicians and talent for an event that somebody else was planning, we sometimes are planning from A to Z full production. And I don't have that team anymore, right? I laid them off. So what do? Do we try to stretch our team to do what they're doing now, which is virtual events and booking talent and planning these over the top events? And this is where the deal comes in. So I had been talking with basically a competitor, friend in the San Francisco Bay Area. We're very lucky here. It is not cutthroat. It's very collaborative. It's not super territorial. So we play very well in the playpen together. There are other industries and different parts of the country where that is not a thing, but here it is. So I'm talking to a competitor. We will sometimes go up against each other on bids, and we're talking about how we can work together. And so with this other event company, and now with others, I'm either bringing them in a deal to work white label for us, or we work in tandem as a strategic partner. There's so many different ways we can do it. Or in the case of this incredible situation, we got called to do, I think it was a $650,000, that was their budget, team outing in Mexico.
Mhm.
And someone from my team, this was last fall when the new variant was coming through. And we were like, yeah, we don't want to do that. So instead of that strategic partnership or that white label, we kicked the offer over to this other company. They won the bid. And what took us maybe 45 minutes in total, or 20 years of growing a business,
Right.
however you want to look at it, we got a check for $12,000 and didn't do anything. That's not true, right? We did something, but you know what I mean.
You did something very valuable, but in terms of time involved, yeah.
The end client was very happy. Our strategic partner was very happy, and we were very happy.
Yeah, so there's so much in what you said, and I want to start to break it down a little bit. First of all, you casually, not so casually, but somewhat, you talked about the environment there and do it, working with a competitor, and that's something we've talked about on this podcast in the past, where people, make an assumption, right, that there is competitors, we're not, we're not supposed to, they're competitors, right? We're supposed to be either afraid of them or doing due diligence or figuring out what they're doing and how to beat them and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, we've raised this many times where there's so many opportunities to do business, quote unquote, with competitors. And I've had people on. I remember, early on, we had Damon Gersh from Maxims, who I had on again later when he sold his company. And, he talked about how he created an industry association of a bunch of his, quote unquote, competitors, because there were a few very big players in his industry and collaborated, they got the national contracts, and it was tougher to get the national contracts as a regional firm. But when you collaborate with other regional firms, you can do it. So that's one thing you pointed out, which is really good. And then, I want to talk about a couple of these other things. So you mentioned the term white label, right? Mm-hmm. So why don't you talk a little bit about what that kind of deal looked like? What does it mean to white label?
Yeah. So we bring in this team, and what we found when we presented to other clients of bringing us in together as a strategic partnership, it was too convoluted. It was too complicated for the end client to understand that they weren't paying two whole different, that it wasn't. Yeah, you get it. So I realized the aha moment was, we just need to make it simple for them. And so that means our competitor, who's white labeling for us, has to tuck their ego in their belts and take an email address from our team and just act as an extension of our team. And with that relationship that we had built over, the last couple of years, and actually the 16 years before, when we were in the industry together, it all worked out great. We have another company in Long Beach that we're having do white label with us, and it's similar, where they're doing a bunch of work that honestly, even with our full production team, we would have outsourced that.
Sure.
But we're not lying to our clients. I think there is a fine line. But because we know these people so well, we've vetted them. We've also worked with them for years, not only just bid against each other on projects, but have worked with them, that they can be really part of the team. Yeah. And it's not a lie. Now, if a client said, doesn't that person also work for /own /whatever, then the answer is going to be a resounding, oh, yes. Yeah. On this project and others that we do, we sometimes come together as a team.
No question about it. And listen, here's the thing about it that's interesting. These kind of relationships are just much more prevalent these days, right? Because, the traditional models of business where, you had companies that, had a bunch of people in a building integrated and whatever. I mean, and most clients in most industries are like, it's not a big deal anymore. They're sort of used to people having, flexible, arrangements, different arrangements. And really, yes, I think you pointed out one of the big benefits of white labeling is that, it's not confusing to the client, right? They don't have to sign on with 2 or 3 providers. They're signing on with you. They understand your outsourced part of you, or a partner, or you have strategic alliances that perform some of it, but really they get one engagement letter, right, for the entire scope. You basically sub out the rest. And it's all under your brand. Now, the negatives of that, of course, right?
If they screw it up.
That's right. You're accountable and responsible,
right?
For it. But I think that's sort of what keeps the integrity in it as well as, and it's not quote unquote lying, is that, because it's not like, you're white labeling and then saying, hey, they're not, no, they're part of your team. You're 100% responsible and accountable for the quality and, delivery of their services. So that's the potential downside. You don't want to white label with people that you don't, that you're worried about or you don't trust. And I think,
exactly.
You said it, right? You had history with these folks. You not only competed against them, but you'd also done, projects before. You had the confidence in them that, that they would deliver. So you were comfortable with white label, right?
Yes.
Yeah, good stuff. And then listen, it sounds like in some situations you haven't white labeled, and you can make an argument, for that side where you can say, hey, I've had situations where, in fact, I do this. I have situations in the investment advisory space, for example, where we partner with some compliance consulting firm. We don't do compliance; we do all the corporate deal contract work, and we don't want to take on the liability of compliance because it's So we actually specifically presented it as, hey, we work together with this other firm, but you're going to sign two separate engagements. It's two separate scopes of work. We're not responsible for their work, not responsible for others. There are situations in which that can make sense. Sounds like you do some of those as well, yes?
Well, I'm not sure. I think we attempted to do something like that, except for they weren't going to sign two engagement letters. The agreement was that they were going to funnel everything through us, but work with both teams. And that's where it got complicated and confusing to the end client. And we lost that bid.
Got it.
So never again. We're not doing that again, right? Because it didn't work. And I don't want to bang our head where we know it's, when I stopped and thought about it, I thought, well, we have two very strong brands and two very well-known brands. How could they turn us down? But now I see from their vantage point, there's that, why can't entire productions just do this? Why do they need this other team? Or it's going to cost, immediately they're going to think it's going to cost us double.
Got it. Yeah. So that's powerful because in your particular situation, your industry, right? Why they didn't need it? It's going to cost double. Why can't they do it on their own? Yeah. So, you follow the market and that's how you ended up in the white label. And in other spaces, it does work potentially to do that. And I think, for me, for example, in the legal space, they understand that legal attorney-client privilege stuff is different than consulting stuff. So, it could work. So I think, listeners, I think for you to really, either of these models could work or not work in your business. And, really to explore them. White labeling, for example, works very often with software developers and things like that, where they'll produce, software behind the scenes that then the company gets the white label. So, you want to really see what applies to your situation. In these so as things go forward now, in theory, right, the economy's coming back, the in-person events are coming back. And, obviously you don't have to share any inside information you don't want to share. But are these, is you're thinking that these strategic alliances, these white label arrangements really make sense going forward? Or, because there's also an opportunity to step back up if you wanted to, but maybe it doesn't make sense for you.
Let's do it all.
Yeah.
Okay. So my reasoning is, letting go half of my team was something I don't ever want to feel again.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be cautious in staffing back up, but I'm also going to be more strategic about how I staff up for strategic reasons rather than reaction reasons, right? Oh God, we have $2 million events coming in. We've got to hire someone. Well, that is really affecting the fabric, the tapestry of our team, overhead, benefits, bonuses, tenure, and then, of course, the reliance of that paycheck. And I've mostly always had W-2 employees and rarely 1099 employees. So the thinking right now for me is that we'll continue with the options of the white label, of the strategic alliance, of passing off a piece of business that's just perfect for somebody else instead of trying to shoehorn ourselves in. And then also work with freelancers or 1099 contractors, and then make the right decision when to bring someone on full time.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is it allows you to be more strategic, right? Because now you're not desperate to find somebody to do the work. You always have that white label arrangement. So you can make more, let's say, informed and conscious and better hires, right?
Right. And we have a handful of companies now that we're working with hand in hand. So it's not just reliant upon one. And we're all getting busy and everybody's staffing up. So I don't know how long it will actually work, but we'll see.
And you also then mentioned again a third kind of deal, which you described earlier, which is just a referral, relationship, right?
I mean, that was pretty beautiful right there.
Yeah, where you get paid, for the referral. And listen, it was interesting for me to hear you sort of go back and forth between talking about how really you got paid not to do much from one point of view, but the other point of view is obviously you got paid because of 20 whatever years and reputation and relationship and quality and whatever, and that's fall from nothing. So
we would never have gotten the call in the first place if it hadn't been for our reputation. There's something I want to talk about, Corey, that I haven't brought up, you haven't brought up, but I think is so important. And that is when we became a certified women-owned business. Yep. And there are many, there's the LGBT minority-owned businesses. There's lots of these different certifications. What I learned last year, which was so important for me to know, was that these companies, there's over 700 of them that have pledged to do this, minority-owned business chunk of business, right? Some of them are like, we pledge to do 20% or 30%. Yes. But what I learned, which is so important in speaking about these deals, is that there are some companies that won't even consider us, even though we're a multi-million-dollar company, because we don't have a $15 million company or a $20 million company. We don't have, that kind of track record. And to be able to go in and say, okay, and, they're asking for your financials, right? Yep. So we can say, okay, this is where we are on this playing field. We have this other strategic partner, and the two of us together can handle this $5 million annual project. So a very good other reason to, be in cahoots with your competitors.
Yeah, no, that's a great example, right? There are certain companies, providers, whoever they are, that have certain minimum requirements that alone, right? Yeah, you may not meet. So that totally makes sense. We probably haven't done enough on it. We did a little, probably too long ago, maybe a couple of years ago, on women-owned business and minority-owned business space, because there is a lot of opportunity in that space. It can be a complicated game because there's different agencies, different approvals, Section 8A on the Fed, and different state things.
I want to tell you a secret. Do you want to hear a secret?
Please, yes.
This blew my mind. I can't say which company, but one of the leaders of our diversity portal explained to me that, yes, these companies want to do this, but they have not put in the infrastructure to be accountable, to measure, to qualify. And a lot of it just slips right through. And having that certificate for a lot of businesses, I'll give you an example. We work with a lot of these businesses, and they don't care about our certificate because they're not incentivized to care at the level, that are reaching us. So I know that that's for a different podcast, but I thought I would put that in there.
No. It's interesting. And I've seen companies that do very, very well. And then I've seen a lot of folks who get certified and then they wonder, why they went through all the trouble, because it doesn't really pay off.
It is not easy. It is. No. It's like an FBI probe on steroids.
It totally is. But there's also opportunities that come up. And I have a close friend and colleague who was very active in this for a while in New York, where they call it the council. It used to be the Minority Supplier Diversity Council in the New York, New Jersey area, but I think there are ones around the country that was specifically set up to help quote unquote majority owned companies and minority owned companies, whether that's minority women owned, to partner together to get contracts at big companies where, the majority owned companies, needed to have a minority owned partner for various reasons, whether it was a corporate policy requirement or government requirement, and whether the minority women owned businesses might not have qualified for that contract on their own because they weren't big enough. So there are definitely deal opportunities in that space if you know how to play that game. Let's take a break from the show for a minute so I can invite you to a new way to determine your deal readiness. I created a fast and easy assessment that will determine exactly how deal ready you are. Once you complete the assessment, I use your responses to identify the obstacles that are holding you back from being a deal-driven growth genius. It's as easy as heading to CoreyKupfer.com/assessment. That's CoreyKupfer.com/assessment and filling out a few multiple choice questions. I'll be checking in after the episode to see what your results are. Now back to the show. So let's go back and talk about a little bit more about what you do. So you mentioned some really, household names, some great big tech companies, clients that many companies out there would love to have. But do you also work with other companies of different sizes, lesser known, smaller companies, maybe, or is it mainly big companies?
Well, it's mainly big companies because honestly, there's more revenue, there's more profit. Sure. And the reason why there's more profit is because they don't need us to hold their hand, or they just let us do what we're experts at doing. Right. The smaller companies, the individuals, they take about 4 times more time from us, right? Because we have to reinvent the wheel for their mind because it's not what they do every day. So we have a lot of startups, law firms, pharma, a lot of big Fortune 500 companies, any company that's venture funded that wants to put on a big old bold blast of a thing, come to us. But again, as a business owner, we want to go for the bigger, easier stuff.
Of course, right. Yeah. I mean, listen, it's always the case, right? Or almost always the case with the smaller clients, right? Yeah, take 4 times the amount of time and usually have 1/4 or 1/10 of the budget, right? So, but yeah. So let's have a little fun. Let's have the audience talk to us about some of the cool events you've done. I mean, you don't have to attribute them if you can, or if you can, that's great. But just tell us. What makes you all different? Because we've all been to a million corporate events. Most of them are uninspired.
Well, in San Francisco, we can get away with being very inspired and very out there and whimsical and wonderful. Ultimately for our clients, we want to find out what the outcome is that they want for their clients, right? Yeah. We're creating irrational loyalty. We're creating, excitement for a new product launch, something like that. And a lot of times the clients can't figure out what their end result is. So we really have to help them with that. But to make an event, wow, amazing. And for people like you, or people, in EO, or people that are in, C-suite at Google and such, they've seen everything. Yep. Right. So how do you appeal to them? How do you get them excited about an event? And it's, of course, all the senses. You have to have a beautiful venue. Yep. Okay. Or if it's not a beautiful venue, it has to be really wild, weird, and quirky. Right. Nothing in between that was going to work. Right. And if it is in between, you have to have decor that is outstanding to, change the scenery. Then you have to have incredible food and drink. Yep. And when I say incredible, I actually don't mean it incredible. You really have to have good food and beverage. It doesn't have to be over the top because there's so much going on. It's not going to be the one absolute memory that they're having. But it can't be bad. Right? It can't be bad. Yeah. And if you're going to do hot dogs, you can do hot dogs that are amazing. Right. Yep. So, and then there's the entertainment portion, which is our specialty. So our specialty in the event world is our creativity and our bold approach. And I keep saying bold. And what I mean by bold is if you go to entireproductions.com and you look on our site, you'll see what I mean. Some of them, we're painting human bodies and letting them walk around pretty much naked. And people are posing with them. We have aerialists dropping down, it's a whole Cirque du Soleil sometimes event. But one of the things that really gets people hooked in is not only seeing and experiencing something they haven't seen before, or they've seen it on TV or a movie, but they haven't seen it in real life, is that experiential, interactive situation that they get to participate in that is unusual. So this is totally random, and I don't know why I'm saying it, but one of the things that you can do in an event is this tie-dye dip arm painting. Now, it has to be an outdoor venue. Otherwise it's a mess.
Right.
But if it's a hot summer day, let's say you're at a Google event, then, you've heard the speaker, you've eaten your lunch, you've had a couple of drinks, you've played cornhole. And then there's this booth set up where you get to stick your arm in a vat of color, and you've got this marbleized sleeve, and there's a drying station, and there's and then you're all running around with painted arms, right? That is part of what we do, is we make sure that there are moments of what, or wow, or are you sure we should be doing that? Right. So for one of our clients who just sold it's funny, they had very sort of verging on naughty themes for their Salesforce conference events, because they're all trying a Dreamforce. At night, all the companies are trying to vie for different customers, right, to come to their events. And so they're always one-upping each other. And this one particular client did a 7 Deadly Sins themed event at a premium no host bar. So people were lined up outside, and some of them were leaving in ambulances. Let's just put it that way. And again, if you go on my website, you can see some of the body painted males, models, aerialists. They're all like, it's just so amazing and over the top. And it did push the envelope a little bit on the sexuality and the, and then the next year or the year after, they asked for a very sort of naughty Studio 54 backroom theme, but then they were acquired by Salesforce, and that was the end of their over-the-top requests.
Love it. And listen, it's it's like anything else. And I've been to some of these kind of events. I mean, we were down at the thing in, I don't know, I think it was Costa Rica, where they had body painted, folks, whatever. And like anything else, I mean, especially when you're pushing the edge, they're going to be people who would object to that kind of stuff. But I'm sure every company decides what they want to do and what's appropriate for their culture and
for risk.
Yeah, and what their threshold for risk is, and all that kind of stuff. And and that's an important part of the the matching that you do. So and listen, I love the word bold. I mean, as we know, one of EO's values is boldly go, and I it's this concept of once in a lifetime experiences is an EO thing, is as well. And it's great when I mean, there's just so much. I think for so long there were so many boundaries in corporate, and not that there aren't some still, and depending upon industry, certainly other parts of the country, where the values are different, or there's religious concerns, that kind of stuff. But for companies that that have certain cultures and want to do certain things, that it could be a lot of fun stuff.
It is so much fun, and I love the creative part of taking a client's idea or end goal and then blowing them away with the ideas, and then actually being able to implement them.
So how did you get into this business? Give me a little bit of the journey to this.
Well, I never thought I would do it. I was a professional jazz vocalist and classical violinist. And it came about because I was getting booked so many times in one night, and I didn't want to turn anyone down. This kind of points to my past, which is what I wrote a book about. I've been on my own since I was 16. So you don't turn down opportunities to make money. And so I think that created the entrepreneur in me. We'll never know if it was natural or nurture by necessity. So I would bring in other groups and manage them. So I'd be playing at one person's event, and then 3 other groups would be playing at the same time all over the Bay Area, and I'd be raking in the dough. So I started an entertainment production company, and it just grew into a full event production company, maybe because of the name Entire Productions makes it sound like we do it we do everything. And saying no to people, no, we don't do that, just didn't feel right.
Love it. So, all right, let's talk about the book a little bit. And in doing so, give us a little bit more of your backstory, because obviously you're super accomplished. You work with these great brands. You built a phenomenal company. And, people who don't know you otherwise certainly may not know your journey, which was one that was not where anything was handed to you, right?
Well, no, nothing good was handed to me.
Yeah.
Listen, we all have stories in our lives, and we've all, if you can't get past the age of 35 and not really have been on a hero or heroine's journey, right? Mm. So my book is called Relentless, Homeless Teen to Achieving the Entrepreneur Dream. Mm. And it really walks you through in quite bold, vulnerable, raw, honest, maybe too much, but, an account of what happened to me. Mm. And so I was treated unwell, and that is putting it lightly. Ended up going to a youth homeless shelter on Christmas Day when I was 16, staying there for some time, being told I might go to foster care. I said, yeah, not happening. Because at the time I was studying with a college professor, the violin. So here I am at a homeless shelter doing something that homeless people don't typically do. So nothing really made sense. Lived on my own. I've lived on my own ever since. And, as we were just saying, I'm not sure if my entrepreneur journey started because of that, or maybe it was my, a natural innate ability. Again, we'll never know. But, I wanted to be a performer, and I got to do that. I have 7 CDs out. I've produced other work for other people. Some of my music has been on major motion picture films. There have been a couple of producers and directors in Hollywood that have purchased my life rights as an option to turn it into a movie or film. Those have expired. That was, a while back. And now again, with this book, people are coming asking to turn my story into like a limited series or a feature film. Who knows what will happen? Honestly, the most fun I'm having is the idea of it. I don't know if I need it to come to fruition, the movie part.
But who knows? Maybe there's a movie deal in your future. You never know.
Could be.
Listen, I'm sure I have not had the opportunity to read the book yet. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure it's very, very inspiring from everything I've read, of your story. For me, I'm actually a sucker for, one, entrepreneurial journey stories, and then two, just, overcoming the odds, these, whether it is in a movie or a show, whatever, what some other people might consider even sappy films or whatever, I get emotional because I'm always inspired by the power of the human spirit and the ability that we have as human beings to overcome challenges and circumstances that are,
you're going to like this one.
Yeah.
So I want to say, I have been surprised that a lot of men are finding their way to the book and reading it, not just reading it, but voraciously digesting it, saying things like, I couldn't put it down, or, sending me pictures of underlines and circles and highlights of different passages. And someone, actually a guy that I'd never met from an EO chapter in Arizona, he probably heard about it from another EO member, posted something and he said, this is the book I wish I had the courage to write.
Wow.
And so what I'm learning about my story, and I just asked somebody else recently a man who had not only, he runs a $2 billion company, right? He's got things to do.
Yeah.
He's read the book. He then listened to the Audible. And when he was interviewing me, it was clear he knew every single thing I had written about, right? Because he's bringing it back up to me. And I said to him what I just said to you. And I was wondering from his vantage point why he thought maybe men, because this, I'm a woman, just because of that, I think more women are going to get it, right? And he said, it's not a feminine book. It's not a female story. And that was his vantage point. And I would like to know what yours is. Once you're done.
I will let you know. It sounds to me like, I think it's a human story when people overcome challenges. Obviously, there could be things that are specific, gender specific, whatever. But I don't know. I think anybody who's really open, I'm inspired by folks of all different backgrounds, who've dealt with circumstances that I been fortunate enough never had to have to deal with, but still the ability to rise and overcome is always, inspiring to me. So,
because we have to keep doing it throughout our whole life.
Yes.
It's going to keep, it's going to keep happening. So
in various ways. Yes.
Right.
No question. I remember one time in New York, this is many years ago, we did an event that was called something like Night of the Living Dead. And it was an event where all the year was, it was facilitated in a way where people got really, really, and for listeners, EO is a place where people do get really authentic and open and honest, especially within forum and things like that, where it's just, entrepreneur peer-to-peer learning, really,
confidential.
Yeah. And this particular event was really about people sharing their stories but not just, like as entrepreneurs, we very often share our challenges just as a setup to get to the win. Right? To the hero part, to why we're so successful. Mm-hmm. And this event was really about, no, let's stay in that, like the real of everything that people went through. Mm-hmm. And, it's, and the result of it is that it was just such a connection between everybody in the room because everybody had a story. They were all different, mm-hmm. right? Some were, if you wanted to try to compare, and that was not in fact, it was totally not about that. But yeah, some were seemingly more challenging than others, but it doesn't matter. Everybody's got, a journey, and people shared their darkest, deepest, challenges and nightmares and what they went through in a way that they hadn't before. And it was, it was really, really powerful. So if people want to get a copy of the book, all the usual places.
All the usual places.
Okay.
Amazon, Audible. I would say, listen, if you're asking me, because the Audible has my music woven through the entire listen, you might want to listen to it. And if you want to really make me smile, I won't know this unless you tell me, but you could buy the book and read it while you're listening. If anybody does that, please let me know, because no one has done it to my knowledge.
I love it. I give the name of the book one more time.
Relentless, Homeless Teen to Achieving the Entrepreneur Dream.
So folks, definitely pick up the book. And in terms of just finding out more information on you and your company as well, where do people go?
My personal website is officialnatashamiller.com. And then if you want to see all the crazy events that we've done, it's entireproductions.com.
I love it. My final question on the podcast, Natasha, is always about my highest value in life, which is freedom. And for me, that means freedom from all people around the world, from oppression to why I'm an entrepreneur. And I haven't had a boss in decades, right? So, it means a lot. What does freedom mean to you, and how does it impact your life and business?
Freedom for me is the epitome of, if somebody were to ask me about success, how do I talk about success? I get to do my creative best all day. I basically get to do whatever I want to do whenever I want to do it. Thankfully, I love working. I love being creative. I like solutions. So it's all for good. I'm not out buying Birkin bags and riding on, private jets off to Bali to hang out for weeks. Although I kind of wish I could like that, but I'm a little bit addicted to my job, which encompasses lots of things. So freedom is, not having to worry about money, not having to worry about a house over my head, not worrying about having to rely on someone else for my safety, comfort, et cetera, et cetera.
Love it. Natasha Miller, thanks for being an amazing guest on the DealQuest podcast.
Thank you, Corey.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of DealQuest, where we help you understand how deal-driven growth can be your ticket to freedom. I want to invite you to a unique way to tap into the wisdom and experience of the DealQuest community. Join the DealQuest Deal Den Zoom calls, a free monthly 90-minute mastermind. In the mastermind, we address all the challenges you may be facing and help support you with the opportunities that may arise in terms of deal-driven growth. You will get input not only from me, but all the members on the call will collaborate and serve each other in a mastermind format. To sign up for the free mastermind, go to www.corykupfer.com/dealden. That's corykupfer.com/dealden. I'll see you there. I'm Corey Kupfer. Until next week, wishing you the freedom and financial prosperity that I know your DealQuest will bring.